$45 million for a parade. Representative Bell just caught Defense Secretary Hegseth in a budget scandal that exposes exactly what's wrong with Pentagon priorities. While military families struggle with broken housing and veterans wait months for care, Hegseth can't explain why a military parade gets the same funding as an entire housing renovation project. This isn't about ceremony, it's about betraying the troops.
That would put our troops in harm's way to our enemies.
Well, I reject the premise of the
Just saying,
question.
just as a hypothetical, are you authorized to do that?
I have not and do not.
Exactly, and I assume that. So when you told our ranking member that everything that you say is authorized, that wasn't completely accurate, correct?
What I said is that every way that I communicate is
No,
authorized.
you actually said everything that you said is authorized. I wrote it down. Now, with that said, and the reason I bring that up is because it's about accountability. And we're talking about this war ethos. The primary component of that is accountability. And I'm going to indulge me in a quick analogy. Republicans introduced a bill on the House floor a few days ago, a resolution standing against terror, racism, hate, anti-Semitism, which as an American, as a black man, I'm going to stand against those things 6 times a week, twice on Sunday. Now, the nefarious part was there was a line that was stuck at the end of that resolution that essentially gave a shout out to law enforcement, which I do support, but also to ICE, which right now, a lot of Americans have a problem with the way ICE is being deployed. And I'm not happy with what they're doing, nor do I want to shout them out for that. And so accountability was, I didn't duck from the question. I went and I talked to my constituents. I went on social media. I did interviews to explain exactly where I stood, that I stand against hate. I stand against racism. I stand against anti-Semitism. And I hate that that line was stuck in there. That's accountability. So when we're asking you these questions and you're ducking and you're not answering them directly, that's not a culture of a war. What was the term? A war ethos, a warrior ethos. I'm looking at members who serve, and they're taking their lead from you. That starts with you. And if we have troops who are in war zones and they're watching while they're risking their lives, and you can't just answer some tough questions, what kind of culture is that setting? So, as a prosecutor, when I think about what's happening in California and around the country with ICE, it's not only dangerous and unconstitutional, but it raises serious public safety concerns because we have people with masks that are going around saying that they're ICE, and we've had reports of that, saying that they're ICE and committing crimes. And that's a big problem. But it gets me back to the point of the accountability piece. So, for example, do you believe quality military housing is important? Yes or no? And just keep your mic on for time because I don't only have a minute left.
Our budget commits to robust military housing and barracks upgrades.
Do you believe military children deserve a strong education?
Our budget funds strong education, and we hope more educational choices for military.
Love it. Is it a priority to provide real, reliable care to our veterans?
Of course.
So, Mr. Secretary, we have a problem here because your answers don't match your budget priorities. You said your mission is to restore this warrior ethos and that threats we face are serious, but so must our investments. So when we think of, for example, a $45 million parade, I can think of 45 million things we could do more effectively with $45 million than a parade, such as the things that I mentioned. Military housing, military children's education, providing reliable care for our veterans. All of these things would be higher on the priority than a parade. And so the parade, and when we talk about showing strength, we're not talking about theater. We're not talking about showmanship. We're talking about things that actually make our military more lethal and keeps us safer. And so what I'm saying is that in my limited time left is accountability does matter, and this body cares about what our military is doing, because we care about national security, and we all take it very seriously.
Gentleman's time
My
has
time.
expired.
What Representative Bell did in that hearing room wasn't just budget oversight. It was a masterclass in exposing how military leadership talks about warrior ethos while betraying the warriors themselves. When Bell pressed Hegseth on that $45 million parade, he wasn't questioning ceremony. He was questioning priorities that reveal everything wrong with Pentagon culture. The exchange started with Bell establishing a crucial point about accountability. Hegseth had just claimed everything he communicates is authorized. But Bell caught him in a telling contradiction. You can't claim complete authorization when discussing intelligence operations. Some things require classification boundaries. That evasion set the tone for everything that followed, showing a nominee who either doesn't understand his limitations or won't acknowledge them. This wasn't random questioning. It was a prosecutor building a case about character and judgment. Bell understood that if someone can't be honest about basic procedural facts, they can't be trusted with life and death decisions affecting thousands of service members. Then came the accountability lesson. Bell used his own voting record as an example, explaining how he opposed a resolution not because he disagreed with standing against hate and anti-Semitism, values he supports completely, but because it included language supporting ICE operations he couldn't endorse. That's real accountability, explaining your position even when it's politically complicated. Bell was modeling the transparency he expected from Hegseth. The parade question wasn't about military tradition. It was about resource allocation that exposes institutional rot. $45 million could renovate entire military housing complexes, fund veteran care programs, or improve military children's education. All things Hegseth claimed to prioritize. Instead, that money goes to pageantry, while military families live in substandard conditions and veterans wait months for basic care. Consider the real-world impact. $45 million represents approximately 900 military housing unit repairs, medical care for 15,000 veterans, or educational support for 22,500 military children. These aren't abstract numbers. They're families in mold-infested barracks, veterans skipping medications, and children falling behind academically. When you choose spectacle over these needs, you're making a moral choice about whose welfare matters. Bell's genius was connecting this to warrior ethos itself. Real military strength doesn't come from parades that impress civilians. It comes from taking care of the people who serve. When you spend parade money while service members' children attend underfunded schools and families deal with broken housing, you're not building warrior culture, you're undermining it. The deeper issue Bell exposed is performative militarism versus functional defense. Parades look impressive on television, but they don't make America safer. Properly housed military families, well-educated military children, and veterans receiving prompt care, those investments build the foundation that sustains military effectiveness over decades. What makes this exchange particularly damaging for Hegseth is how it connects to broader questions about his judgment and priorities. If you can't explain why spectacle deserves the same funding as soldier welfare, how do you make the complex resource decisions defense leadership requires? Military budgets involve trade-offs between readiness, modernization, and personnel care. Getting those priorities wrong affects national security directly. Bell also highlighted the credibility gap between rhetoric and action. Hegseth talks about warrior ethos, but his budget choices suggest he values appearance over substance. That matters because military culture flows from leadership priorities. When troops see leaders choosing optics over their welfare, it affects morale, retention, and ultimately mission effectiveness. This isn't partisan theater, it's institutional accountability that determines whether America's military remains the world's most effective fighting force or becomes another bureaucracy that prioritizes politics over performance. Bell's questions reveal a fundamental choice facing military leadership: invest in the people who serve, or invest in the image of service. The consequences extend beyond individual families when leadership chooses appearance over substance. It signals that service member welfare is secondary to political optics. That message affects recruitment, retention, and combat readiness. You can't build warrior culture while neglecting warriors.